And welcome to a brand new edition of Red Mountain Express, episode 33. I'm your host, Blake Westbrook. Joining me as always is Matthew Joyner. We have a great show for you today. We're going to be interviewing Justin Curfman. He is the front man for Feeding Fingers. They're going to be performing at the Nick this coming Friday, so stay tuned for that. But first, Matthew, how was your weekend, man?
My weekend was good.
How was your week?
My week. I don't know. It feels like it was a long time ago.
I swear to God, if it keeps raining, I might have to move to Seattle to get some sunshine. I feel like I'm in Seattle, man. I mean, like, my brother lives up there, and he says, like, it's raining 7 out of 10 days. Mm-hmm. It's 10 out of 10 up here.
And I think from everything I've read or seen, it's just like a different, like, it's not that it's always raining necessarily, it's just that it's always wet. There's always moisture in the air.
El Nino.
I haven't minded it here so much. Like, I like the rain. I've enjoyed it. I said it last time, but I hate driving in it. But I haven't had to really go many places this week.
Well, good for you.
I'm sorry.
I've had to kayak everywhere.
It's not, since last weekend, it's not been as bad this week. We've had some dry spells in between the rain.
I woke up this morning, and this is Sunday for those who are listening. We record this on Sunday, but I woke up this morning, and I was like, there's this big bright blob in the sky. I don't know what this is. And then my wife told me it was the sun. And then, of course, as soon as I said that, a cloud covered it, and now it's raining again.
Yeah, that's yesterday. Me and Laura were working on some stuff, and the sun was out for a little bit, and it was really nice outside. The temperature was good, and we're working on painting that island that I mentioned last episode, 2 episodes ago. We're painting that. We're getting ready for Beach and Woodworks to bring over the top to that island and finish up on that.
Now, what's the top going to be again? Is it?
We've been talking about it all weekend, and as soon as you asked me, it just slipped my mind.
Is it butcher block?
No, I mean, it's going to be just a solid piece of wood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know I'm going to say it, and my wife will hear me later, and she'll correct me. Maybe it's red oak, or I said walnut last time, and that wasn't right, and now I can't remember again. It doesn't matter. It's going to have a really.
It's pine.
It's a giant wooden top. It's like a 4x5 island. We spent all weekend painting it, and so yesterday the sun was out and it was really nice. I thought, man, this is great. Like, we can get out there and paint it. And I looked up at one point, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock, and there was a giant gray cloud coming towards us. I thought, that figures.
It looks good.
Yeah, thanks.
Have you finished the baby's room yet?
No. Island first. It's more important.
Is it more important?
Yeah. Baby can wait. Baby's not going to be here for a few more months.
It'll be here for
We got some time.
Yeah.
How about you? How was your weekend?
Man, I've been fighting a cold. It's not the flu for all my friends who are listening right now. I don't have the flu. It's nowhere near the flu. I just had a cold. Like, I think last week we were recording something, and I got like a coughing fit that was about to happen at the end of the episode. And so if I was rushing through that, that's because I was about to cough all over everything. But, like, it won't go away. And then our child's sick. She had an ear infection, so that just, makes everything worse. And then it's just been a long week. It's been a long week. And, I haven't had car trouble this morning.
Yeah, you told me about that. That's
I mean,
tough to hear. Car trouble's never fun.
I'm just saying, man. You know what I need? I need some Wentzels.
Well, that's good, because I got some news for you. Hallmark Properties, Hallmark Hospitality, has announced they're going to open 6 new Wentzel's locations in Alabama.
I see it, man. I like Wentzel's. My wife worked for Wentzel's when we were in college in Tuscaloosa. They're good. The one in Mobile is fantastic. But 6 in come on. Really?
Look, I know we've got one in Fultondale right now. We've got one in Mobile, one in Montgomery, or not Montgomery.
Yeah, there's one in Montgomery.
Oh, sorry, Montgomery, maybe not Mobile. One in Huntsville.
And there's one in Tuscaloosa.
And one in Tuscaloosa. So that's at least 4 I know about.
And then there's one in Greenville.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been to it.
What are we going to do with 6 new locations?
I mean, look, I love Wentzel's. I think Wentzel's is good. I love gumbo. I love seafood. I love Wentzel's. Wentzel's is good. But 6?
6.
I mean, let's be honest here. How many Chick-fil-A's are there in Birmingham?
Oh, 60. I don't know. I mean, I'm being silly, but I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, but 6. I mean, Wentzel's is like a specialty type restaurant.
I mean, it's more like your, and I'm not. This is not an insult if you take it this way, but it's more like your Red Lobster. Like it's a seafood house. It's
that is an insult.
I just mean that it's not something. It's not a fast food place that pops up on the corner of every interstate intersection. Like
Red Lobster sucks.
I haven't been there since I was a kid. I love their cheddar biscuits, though.
Oh, no, I don't like those. They're
no?
awful. No, it's bad.
Oh, man.
I mean,
I'm out of touch. I'm not a big seafood person anyway.
You don't like seafood?
I like some seafood.
What's wrong with you?
I'm just not a big seafood person.
What?
Well, I didn't like it as a kid, and I started liking it more as an adult, but there are still some things that I avoid. Like oysters, I'm not an oyster fan.
What?
No.
See, that's the thing about Wentzel's I like. It's oysters. Well, it's called Wentzel's Oyster House.
Well, and that's probably why I need to give Wentzel's a second try is because
Man, get you a big old tray of oysters, a big old thing of beer, some Crystal's hot sauce, and go to town.
I'll tell you, the last time I had oysters, though, was Fancy's on 5th.
That place is good.
They were good oysters. Somebody else ordered them.
I have not heard a bad thing about that place.
They offered me one or two. I ate it with a cracker and some hot sauce, and it was okay, but I wouldn't want to make a meal out of it.
I'm not saying make a meal. That's an appetizer.
I wouldn't want to eat more than one or two that I had. That was enough for me.
Man, I love oysters. I could sit there with a couple trays and sit on the beach and watch the waves come in. And
that just seems like a lot.
Well, no, so 6 new locations. They're going to say this over the next 4 years. Yeah, I mean, I'm for it, but I just don't think we're in need of 6 new locations of Wentzel's in the Birmingham area.
Well, so the man that runs Hallmark Hospitality, I didn't write the name down. They opened in 2017, and he used to work for Wentzel's, or was vice president or president.
I think that's right. Yeah,
he had an association with Wentzel's, so it's not like
no, I'm not saying. That's a lot of Wentzel's.
It is, and maybe because Wentzel's is an Alabama company, maybe he knows the market, maybe they can support it. But you're right, like that seems like a lot of restaurants.
Hey, new hotel coming to downtown Birmingham.
Tell us about it.
Well, there's a new hotel. I don't know. Have you ever seen the old Protective Life building? It's on First Avenue North. It's a really pretty building. I think it's Raglan Hospitality. They're the folks that were behind the Redmont, have bought the building, and they want to make it how many rooms were they talking here? 96-room hotel. The building was built in 1928, originally housed Protective Life, and then the Chamber of Commerce was there after that. So, yeah, new hotel for downtown Birmingham. I am glad that if we're getting new hotels, they're going in old buildings. There's nothing like old buildings getting refurbished and put to new use, because this was not a hotel. This is an office building. So there's going to be some work into it. And there's a company that's behind it that's done this before. This is not like some new company coming in that have grand plans and that never comes to fruition. So this is good. And we've always talked about one thing Birmingham lacks in the city center is hotel space. Well, they're slowly taking care of this. Well,
and especially as it looks like we're getting closer and closer to working out the BJCC renovations and getting the new stadium in. This is a good thing. It looks like people who are in this business with hotels are getting more excited, or at least trying to position themselves to get in Birmingham and get that money. I mean, this will be a new market for Birmingham. Not new per se, but a more maturing market, a growing market.
I think that's fair. Do you like older hotels? Are you a fan of that? Or
are
you a Hampton Inn guy? There's nothing wrong with that. I love the
Hampton Inn, Holiday Inn. Those places are great if you're on the road and you just need some place that you know is going to be the same everywhere you go. That's what I like about Holiday Inn. If I go to a Holiday Inn in Alabama versus one in Kentucky versus one in California, they're all generally going to be the same. So I know what I'm getting when I stop there.
Right.
That's great. But if I'm somewhere visiting, my wife and I did our honeymoon in New Orleans, and off the tip of my tongue, I can't tell you the name of the place we stayed, but it was an old railroad building or railroad station house. It was maybe like 60 or 70 rooms, not very big, but they'd all been, renovated and updated. It has its little quirks and little problems that you could find if you really nitpicked, but the character of the building, the way everything looked and felt, and even kind of had a smell that you'd associate with an older building.
A smell?
Yeah, not like a bad hotel smell, but like old metal and brick, like just the.
I know what you mean. I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm good at that.
The locations that it was in, like just being in an established part of the city, I like that kind of stuff. I haven't been in the Redmont since they did the renovations.
Mm-hmm. Had lunch there. It's pretty. It's pretty on the inside.
Well, and the last time I was there, I had a family member staying there, and I thought it was a really great building. I love the fact that building had history, and it was so cool. I love that they're using these older buildings to do these hotels in, because if I have somebody else coming in to stay in Birmingham, those are the places that I'm going to recommend they stay at, not your Holiday Inns or your Hiltons or whatever.
My wife and I, we stayed at the Carlton in New York City on our honeymoon, and it is part of the, I don't know if it's the Curio Collection or whatever it is for Marriott. but it's just like a bunch of old hotels that they own, and it was great. The rooms were not a bad size at all, especially for New York City, and it was on Madison Avenue, which was really cool. So we were close to a lot of things. So that's what I tell folks whenever they go to a place: try to find like a hotel that's like a local hotel, and even if it's some place that's locally, it's a local hotel, but it's owned by a big hotel chain, that could be even better because you're going to get the services of a hotel chain, but you're going to get the the authenticity of the city. So it's good news for the city of Birmingham. Hopefully it'll come to fruition and have a new hotel to try out here in Birmingham when you come and visit.
Yeah. So like you mentioned earlier, we have an interview with Feeding Fingers after the break. I do want to mention really quickly, we sat down to record this interview with Justin Curfman. He's the frontman of Feeding Fingers. Last Thursday, he called in. We were trying something new to record it over a phone call. We haven't done that. Almost everybody we've interviewed has been local and we've been face-to-face. So this was a new experience for us.
And it didn't work.
Well, no, the interview went so great. We spent about 20 minutes on the phone with him. We had a really great time. And then we hang up and I go to look for the recording on the app and it's just gone. Like I was texting Blake. I was like, man, it's gone. I contacted...
It's technology for you, man.
Contacted customer service, talked with them. They were like, let's see what we can do. We'll email you again tomorrow. They emailed me back like 12 hours later.
And they weren't like, I'm going to have to put you on hold. Like,
no, they were just like...
take me off hold.
They said, we're sorry, it's gone. There was a cell phone outage somewhere in their area, and they just lost it. So Justin was a great sport. We just got off the phone with him before we recorded this part of the show. Did the interview again. So if the sound quality sounds a little bit different, it's because we did it that way.
And if you don't like it, you do your own podcast.
We hope you enjoy it. Justin's a really great guy. We enjoy talking to him. Like Blake said, they have a show at the Nick on the 23rd, and tickets can be found at thenickRocks.com. I'm going to post some more information, a link to the Nick's website, a link to Justin's website, or Feeding Fingers website, so you can find out more information on them. Give their music a try. I haven't listened to their whole catalog. They've got 7 albums, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
I have listened to their newest album, the one they're on tour for, called Do Oh Harm. I've listened through it twice now. And I know I've mentioned this before. It may not be something that I would find coming across my local radio stations, but it is, if you like that style of music, it is enjoyable music. They are very talented, so give them a try. If you like the stuff, go out, get a ticket to the show, and go see them, support them, and tell them Matthew and Blake from Red Mountain Express said, hey.
Yeah, so if you go check out that show, please let us know how you liked it, how you liked the music, kind of give us your feedback. And with that, we're going to take a little break here from our friends over at Beecham Woodworks. I'm going to keep saying it that way.
I hope you do.
At Beecham Woodworks, and we'll be back with Justin Curfman from Feeding Fingers. We'll see you in a minute. Beecham Woodworks is a locally owned and operated wood shop in Birmingham, Alabama, specializing in custom furniture and small home goods. Chris and K&M Beecham create a wide variety of unique pieces of all sizes, ranging from cutting boards to farmhouse tables. Using wood sourced from Alabama sawmills, Beecham Woodworks creates affordable quality pieces that will be a one-of-a-kind fixture for your home. So support your local woodworker and visit redmountainexpress.com/woodworks or check them out on their Facebook and Instagram accounts. Beecham Woodworks, turning your house into a home. And welcome back to the second half of the Red Mountain Express. We have a special guest on our show today, Justin Curfman. He is the lead singer of Feeding Fingers. They will be playing a show here in Birmingham at the Nick this Friday, February 23rd, and we're glad he's on the show. Justin, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing really well, man. How are you doing?
Doing good. Now, where are you in the world right now?
Right now, we're a little bit north of Houston. We're on our way to St. Louis, so we got like about a 13 or 14-hour drive ahead of us. Long way to go.
That just doesn't sound pleasant. So Justin, start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you became the front man of Feeding Fingers.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was born not too far from you guys. I was born in Atlanta, and I started this band in 2006. When I was a kid, just growing up in Georgia, I worked on a bunch of music for like animated short films and things like that, and I wrote a bunch of music over the course of most of my childhood, really. And then in 2006, I decided to, instead of writing music just for animation and film and stuff, I decided to try to do some music try to start a band and see how that would be, and try to have some fun and what I thought was going to be short-term hobby turned into a 12-year project. So I started in Atlanta in 2006, and then I moved to Germany in 2010. Then I moved to Italy in 2000, I want to say 15. And I've just been running this band now ever since. Yes, somehow it's been close to, I guess, 12 years now. So.
How did you find the transition from Atlanta, Georgia, to Germany and Italy?
That's a pretty long way, I guess. Huh? Well, we played. We're playing mostly in the Southeast and the East Coast in the United States from 2006 to 2009, and when we released our second album, the second album came out on a record label based out of Atlanta called Stick Figure Records, and they decided to market the record mostly to a European audience because it seemed that most of the album sales and stuff were coming from Central Europe and Eastern Europe. And so when the second album was released, we decided to sort of just focus more on the European market because you have to follow statistics, you have to look at math and everything. And so we decided to do our first European tour in 2010. And my first producer, Jim Batan, who is Coyote J, who you guys are familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely.
He helped us put a tour together as well. So we did our first tour in 2010 in Europe, and I came back home, and this is sort of like at the height of the financial crash, and when I came back to Atlanta, I decided to sort of cut my losses in America and say, well, I'm gonna stick to the European market and see how that works out for me long term. So I moved to Germany in 2010. I moved to Cologne, and that's where I've been based at ever since, really, just between Germany and Italy.
So, as a Southern man, born and growing up around here, how do you see the lifestyle difference between the American South and living over in Europe?
It's worlds apart, really. I mean, growing up in Well, growing up in the South, it was nice, especially being a kid in more of a rural part of Georgia outside of Atlanta. I could be a kid and do kid stuff. Go out in the woods and break my bones and get hurt and start fires and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm used to having a little bit more of a sort of an outdoor sort of independent lifestyle. But moving to Europe, one of the big differences is simply just based on population density. You don't really have so much. You don't really have these big wide open spaces and the privacy and the sort of way to sort of live your own life without affecting too many people. That was a big thing to get used to. You have to sort of deal with the fact that you're going to have people living above you, under you, to your left and to your right. So that was sort of like the biggest transition for me was just sort of like the lack of privacy. And when you're a musician, that can be a little difficult because all you do is make noise all day. And then of course learning a bunch of languages too. That was another thing that I had to get used to. But thankfully, I'm fluent in German and Italian, so I had to really dedicate tons and tons of time to that. And it's not easy when you get older, to do that.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, those are the big two. Just a big cultural difference for the idea of space, and then of course learning new languages. That was probably the biggest two hurdles for sure.
Now, Justin, how would you describe the music Feeding Fingers? Some would call it experimental. What would you say would be the best way to describe your music?
Yeah, that's always difficult. I know every musician says that, but I think it's hard because I purposely try to, every album I try to explore different instruments and different ways of songwriting and things like that, so that every album isn't basically a rehash of the previous album. Like I don't want to sound like Red Hot Chili Peppers or something like that. And so I think when we first started out, for sure it was more like sort of post-punk, sort of dark wave oriented. But having done this now for 12 years and put out 6 albums, I think trying to put a little bit of everything in there, some jazz, some electronic music, some Eastern Europe, just Oriental music and everything. And I guess the easiest way would be sort of like world rock music at this point. It's but for most people who listen to our stuff, they sort of tend to be listening to indie rock or sort of like older gothic rock or post-punk stuff, and then when they listen to that stuff in the front, then they start listening to the other music that's more sort of world music oriented, I guess, but done in like a pop rock format, so that it's not such a difficult pill to swallow that nobody wants to listen to. You know, so I don't want to go the whole Paul Simon route. You know, yeah. But it's I would say it's more like world music, rock music, I guess at this point. But who knows? In a few years, maybe I'll start writing like some really bad like 90s country music or something.
Well, speaking of country music, you know, was it your grandmother who used to play on the Grand Ole Opry? Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. She played with Andy Griffith's old band. She used to be a session musician in Nashville. She used to play at the Grand Ole Opry, and she had a pretty good history until she decided to get married, you know, and sort of put all that stuff in the background. But when she was younger, that's what she did, and so I sort of grew up based out of that. And my father is also sort of like a big sort of Texas blues guitar kind of guy. So yeah, I just grew up sort of surrounded by music. But when I was much younger, I sort of avoided music because, you know, that's what your parents do. You don't want to do what your parents do. But as I got a little bit older, I started to just write music. I guess it just came natural as a fun thing for me to do. So yeah, growing up in a musical family definitely helped a lot.
Have you been able to incorporate any of that music or that style into what you're doing today?
Yeah, a little bit, I think. I mean, I listen to a lot of country music for structural ideas because especially people like Patsy Cline or Hank Williams, you know, a lot of the songs have really brilliant structures. And I mean, a lot of popular music is still based on those same structures that have been around since the 40s and 50s. And I listen to quite a bit of stuff from that time period, and especially not this album that just came out, but the one previous to it, Attend. I tried to incorporate some instruments too, like there's lap steel guitar and even some different sort of dobro sounding instruments, things like that. And yeah, I try to play a little bit with everything just to try to keep myself interested, you know. And after a while, just picking up a regular, you know, just a regular electric guitar can be a little bit uninspiring sometimes.
Sure.
So, yeah, I try to incorporate as much as I can into everything. Yeah.
So tell us about, you know, with so many things incorporated into your songs and across your albums, can you tell us a little bit about your process when you start with a concept for a new song or a new album? How do you proceed from concept to actual execution?
Well, normally what I do is like I'll have an idea for like sort of like a sound palette that I want to work with, almost like a painter. I would say, well, I would like to try to write a song using a theremin and a fretless bass and a banjo and drums and see how that sounds. And then I will try to experiment with just the tone, the tonality of different instruments. And then when I find sort of like a motif that sounds interesting to me, I'll sort of write around that motif with these instruments. And if one instrument doesn't sound as good as I wanted it to, or if it sounds better, like I'll trade out other instruments, and then I'll find a sort of like a series of timbres that I like, and I'll have a motif, and then I'll write a song structure for it. And then when I'm satisfied with the song structure, I always write the lyrics last and the harmony last. And the way that works is the way I write lyrics is almost more to do with like a Ouija board. I think I'll just have I'll have a heart. For me, the melody is the most important thing, and the text is sort of like a secondary, I guess. And I'll write text a lot of the times just based on what syllables will fit the melody. So the words themselves are never like the primary thing. And so when the words come out, the words are actually sort of like an interesting puzzle. So if this word fits, you know, these many syllables in this amount of time, and if it sounds good, then I think I'll stay with that. And if I'm lucky, you know, 10 years later, I'll listen to the song again, and it will make sense to me.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, you know, it's like putting together a little puzzle.
Do you ever have fans or people talk to you about your music and ask you what your lyrics mean, and they're really trying to dig into it, and you're just like, well, you know, they...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It just rhymed really well, yeah.
Yeah, all the time. And then And sometimes if I don't answer the questions, they think I'm being evasive, but I simply just don't have a solid answer, you know. And then sometimes they'll read stuff into the lyrics that isn't there, you know, and try to, there's this and then there's this. It's like, well, if you say so, but I didn't do that on purpose, you know.
At that point, I guess it's more like they're looking at a piece of art, and it's their interpretation is more subjective than based on anything you really meant to put in there.
Yeah, exactly. But that's another reason why I stay away from politics, because I think, you know, I don't want to go down that route. But yeah, for sure, that's usually, yeah, it's like you said, it's more. I think it's more equated with looking at a painting or a piece of artwork, and I think it's more fun that way anyway, because that way people can tell me something that they saw. And I'm, okay, I didn't see it that way. That's interesting.
So, Justin, let's say that there are folks listening right now who are going to be listening to Feeding Fingers for the first time. Where would you recommend they start? What's the first song, or maybe what is the album they should be listening to kind of start them on their journey?
Well, I think the song that the most popular song that we have for sure is the song called "Fireflies Make Us Sick." It's on the first album. But I would probably, for new listeners, I would say maybe listen to the first album. It's called "Wounded Wall," and then maybe listen to the third album. It's called "Detach Me From My Head." Those two albums are a little bit more. I think they're a little bit better for a general music audience. You know, they're a little bit more pop oriented, but they're not. But they have elements of experimental music, but they're a little bit more like, from a structural standpoint, they're a little bit more palatable, I think, for a general music audience. But yeah, I would for sure, like, those two albums would probably be the best way to start.
In the shows you're doing on this tour, are they all songs from your new album, Duo Harm, or are you kind of mixing in some older stuff that people may know if they listen to your music?
Oh no, we play the set list. It varies in length from night to night, depending on what the promoters or the venues ask for us. But every show we have selections from every album. So we have at least every show has at least one or two songs from every album, so that the whole discography is represented in some way. Like last night in Houston, we played about an hour-long set, and we had to do an encore, and a lot of the people in the audience were more familiar with the first album, so we did an encore using material from the first album. So we try to keep we just try to keep, you know, at least a couple of songs from every album, so that it's interesting to us to play too. Because if you want to just play old songs every night, then everybody starts to lose interest, you know, just as a musician.
Sure.
So, and I think an audience can feel it too when a musician is sort of not into his own stuff anymore. So we try to play a little bit from every album.
You guys have been in Europe for several years now, and you've done a lot more of your marketing and your shows there. How do you find your reception coming back to America?
I got to be honest, man. It's been much better than I expected it to be, because we haven't played a lot of shows in America in several years, and I was afraid coming back that too much time had maybe passed and we'd be sort of starting at square one. But in fact, it's been the opposite way. Like every show that we've played here has had really great turnouts, and we've even had people flying in from all over the country. Like even last night, we had a guy fly in from Los Angeles all the way to Houston just for the show, and then we had another guy in Miami, Florida, that flew up from Brazil.
Oh wow!
And so we were really we've been shocked at that kind of stuff, and I think that having not played here in such a long time, it may have even been better for us, because people have had a little bit more time to wait to come see. Because if you're a band and you play too much in a certain market, then people will stop coming, because if they can hear you every 6 months, then they're not going to come. You know.
Yeah.
So it's been a pleasant surprise. It really has. We've every night after a show, we just sit down and talk about it. So, wow, this has been going really wonderful, because we were completely prepared to expect the worst. You know, like we. But it's been a really beautiful, pleasant surprise. I have to say, every night when I go to bed, I'm exhausted beyond belief, but I go to bed with a smile on my face. So it's been great.
That's great. That's really great to hear. So I'm going to take a bit of a left turn here. You guys reached out to us, and we were talking to you about doing this interview, and you had the show coming to Birmingham, and so I started doing a little bit of research, trying to figure out who you were and who Feeding Fingers was. But then I came upon a novel that had your name on it, and I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I wrote a novel called Wrecker. I can't remember what year that was. I think it was 2012 or 2013. When I was younger, I never thought too much about being a musician. I always thought I would either be a baseball player or a mystery novelist or something like that. And I always loved writing because you don't need a tour bus, you don't need a promotional manager, you don't need instruments. All you need is a typewriter or word processor or whatever. You can just use your imagination and write a book. The book that book that I wrote is sort of semi-autobiographical, I guess, but it's also got elements of fiction, of course. But I don't really know what to say too much about it. It was like a nice way for me to sort of. I wrote that book in Germany in between albums, and it was a nice way for me to sort of just clean my brain out a little bit before I started working on new music. And
sure.
It's like it's hard to explain. It's semi-autobiographical, but also fictional. But it takes place in Georgia, of all places, so maybe even a spot in Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. But
okay. Yeah, I know, and I kind of brought that up because I saw through some of your biographies that you had done some little animated features and you had done some the novel work and then the music, and I just kind of thought that sounds like a pretty well-rounded. Is there anything else you work on the side, or any other little projects that you have going that people might be interested in?
Well, right now I'm mostly just focused on all this music stuff, of course, because of all of the touring and everything. That's a full-time job in and of itself, just answering emails and stuff. But I think maybe after this tour, I might get my hands back into some animation stuff, or maybe some writing again, just to sort of clean my head out a little bit before making more music. But I don't know. It's every 6 months or so I try to think of some other project to do, because I like to do pretty much everything. But of course, as time goes on and you get older, and you have to sort of prioritize your you have to pick your battles,
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe after this tour, and I'll see if I can start writing again, or maybe even start painting again. It's just I like too many things and have too little time, But I'm sure that everybody can sympathize with that.
Absolutely. And so on that same note, do you have anything else coming up for Feeding Fingers that you can talk about at this point?
We're going to be leaving America on March 5th, and our first show in Europe for this tour is going to be March 10th in Greece, in Athens, and then we're going to be touring all of Eastern Europe, and then a big portion of Scandinavia, and then the last show is going to be in Albania on April 13th, and then after April 13th, everybody splits up, goes back home, and then I'm going to start writing the next album. I've already got some ideas for the next album, so I'll probably be working on that during the spring and summer. And then after that album's finished, I can start booking again and do some more shows. And it's always constant work, on something, but it's what I love to do, so I can't complain,
Well, the band is Feeding Fingers. Justin, thank you so much for joining us. You can find them at the Nick this coming Friday, February 23rd. You can get tickets by going to thenickrocks.com. To purchase their music, you can, of course, go to iTunes, or you can go to their website, feedingfingers.net. Justin, thank you so much for being with us. We really, really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin. Good luck, guys.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Red Mountain Express. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. You can also log on to our website at redmountainexpress.com. For Matthew Joyner, I'm Blake Westbrook. We'll see you next week.